Good morning. This is Rich Nass, Executive Vice President of Open Systems Media and leader of the Embedded Computing Design franchise. I'm here for this week's session of 5 Minutes With, and this week I'm speaking to David Ewing, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Synapse Wireless. Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rich. Good morning.
So obviously, by the name of the company, everybody knows what Synapse Wireless does, but you guys are pretty heavily into the IoT space. But I want to take this in a little different direction because of your background, which is in the IT space. Now, there's a lot of people who are of the belief, and I'm sort of one of them. We'll see where we go after these 5 minutes. A lot of people believe that when the telecom industry really gets involved in IoT, that's when we're going to see the hockey stick effect. And that's because IT telecom folks understand communications. Am I out in left field, or is there validity to this argument?
Well, Rich, that's a really good question. And I totally agree. The involvement of these traditional telecom service providers is going to be a really big factor in adoption and an indicator of the adoption of IoT technology. But when you talk about industrial IoT, things get a little bit more complicated. And so there's a mix. I think each of the major service providers are looking for ways to capitalize on IoT. They've, in the world of the internet as we know it today, they've really kind of been a dumb pipe, and that dumb pipe status is something that the network operators want to move beyond. I think we saw that with, there's been a sort of the first wave of what was called M2M before we started calling this IoT, right? I guess there's still a thing called M2M. Those products really were, a lot of fleet management applications, kiosk applications, applications that could really afford to have cell modems and, individual M2M data plans and things like that. But I'd say all the service providers are realizing now that they've got to go well beyond that level to really provide more than just the traditional SIM card management, commissioning, and billing services. And really the other thing is those sorts of applications are not where the quote billions of devices, right, that we hear about for IoT. We're going to have the hockey stick effect or those sorts of numbers of devices. They're probably not going to be traditional looking, endpoints from the standpoint of the telcos. So there's an analogy.
Now, when you said that,
yeah, go ahead.
When you the last part you just broached, that's referring to the industrial segment, right? About it'll be not just turn the switch on, but it'll be a nice ramp. Is that correct? Yeah,
and I think kind of limiting it to the industrial sector, you can think about you can start to think about what the types of devices, types of sensors will look like from if you look through the lens of IoT. And, we've got to back up and say IoT has become really quickly a term that means way too much and maybe not enough. Is a smartphone an IoT device? Is a Nest thermostat an IoT device? Or no, does it have to be, something that's a tiny little, beacon or, a sensor where you wouldn't really expect there to be connectivity? So I think all of the above are kind of true. And when we look at IoT and industrial, we start to think about things that aren't already connected, right? They're not already, connected to a PLC in a factory or something like that. These are different level of applications, and it's at a scale that goes well beyond both the scale that goes beyond where you could access in a straightforward network service provider way, but it also brings in a different type of application interaction. So I thought thinking of an analogy here where from a personal standpoint, you might have something like a fitness tracker, like a Fitbit. And that Fitbit, gets its service, through your mobile phone, but it's not managed. The Fitbit's not managed directly by the phone company. It's managed by this intermediate device, right? And to the service provider, your phone is the edge device. But if in the IoT world, that type of device is just a gateway that gets you off to the real IoT networks. In this case, Fitbit's using a Bluetooth Low Energy connection. So that's actually a thing, right? The little battery-powered device that could last for a year on a coin cell or something like that. And those sorts of things really fall outside of the traditional management network operation capabilities that you'd think about from service providers. And in the industrial sector, and that's where Synapse is focusing a lot of attention. Just imagine an application where you install an IoT sensor on every motor in a factory. So you've got thousands of little Fitbits on the motors, right, sending status, generating alerts, and all that stuff. But you've got additional needs, right? You've got security management, software updates you want to roll out in a coordinated way, network health monitoring on premises where you don't necessarily have any other kind of network access besides whatever the technology is being used. Commissioning and decommissioning is a lot different than commissioning a new SIM card onto a network. And managing these different, you might have multiple types of IoT applications, maybe using multiple different physical networking layers like 15.4 mesh or using Wi-Fi or RBLE or stuff like that. So it gets to be there's a whole range of new problems and types of data connectivity, types of application management that really, to me, makes it another level beyond where today the service providers are able to get their arms around. And we see that there's a lot of opportunity there. There's new companies emerging, both on a lot of them are out there on the cloud side of things, and that's where you see also the service providers kind of focusing, hey, maybe we can get a piece of this. Instead of being a dumb pipe, we're gonna offer additional services at the cloud end of it. To us at Synapse, we see that there's a tremendous amount of software needed to develop and deploy these large-scale networks, these IoT networks at the thing level. That's a really the capital T thing. So that's where we're focusing on the things of IoT. And so all this software runs on the things themselves as well as on those on-premises, gateway devices. And Synapse is really focusing on providing that software infrastructure so that customers can concentrate on solving their application domain problems and really extract the value of IoT. So you get a lot of buzz around cloud platforms that are trying to help customers get really quickly to market and to do a lot of the sort of least common denominator stuff that you need to do when you're ingesting all this IoT data. And we're over kind of at the other end of it. So let's say inside of a factory or inside of a plant, looking at all the software services and these thing services that you need to be able to deploy and manage and secure those sorts of networks. So where the telcos play in that ultimately, I think they're going to succeed in being more than just a dumb pipe, because I think there's more need for the device management. Maybe some of the mobile device management stuff we're seeing today will translate over to management of gateway type devices. But I think you're going to see an unfolding of a huge additional set of sort of layers of software APIs and software services at the thing level on premises, where the rubber hits the road of IoT.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. I want to throw back one thing that you said earlier. It's obvious that a Nest is an IoT device, but you said there's a question whether a smartphone is an IoT device. How is it not? I mean, well, I don't want to jade your answer. Is a smartphone an IoT device?
Well, I mean, let me just take I could argue either side of that, but let me just take sort of the devil's advocate side and say, no, it's absolutely not. My smartphone replaced my PC, and my PC is not an IoT device. It's a terminal for a human to use, and I'm not a thing. I'm a human, right? I'm in the Internet of people, right? So there's I could draw a distinction between things. What constitutes a thing? And if I'm using this as a terminal as a way of getting on the Internet, that'd be a pretty clear one. So yeah, that's where I would kind of maybe draw that line. But as I said, you could get into all the semantics of it, and I think that's one of the issues we're having with IoT is like, what does IoT actually mean? And it's very broad, and right now it means a lot of different things to different people. I think one thing we can all agree on is there is a lot of additional value that's going to be generated by connecting and automating, furthering automation, furthering efficiencies, and all the things that we know we can do just by connecting and sensing the physical world and controlling the physical world. So it's an exciting area.
Well, you have opened up the proverbial can of worms, and that's something that would take a lot longer than 5 minutes to discuss, and I'm afraid that we are out of time. That was David Ewing. He is the CTO of Synapse Wireless, and I'm Rich Knapp, Open Systems Media, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Rich. It's been a pleasure.